Hey guys, welcome back to the Hear Me Roar pod. I am Tobi and my co-host is none other than the Kate Save, which you might know her from Shark Tank. She's also founder of BeFit Foods and picked up Telstra's Business of the Year award too. Kate?
Well, Toby, you've got a super impressive CV, 25 years in global commercialisation experience, and you founded Creative Cubes, Australia's leading co-working space and real estate business.
All right, let's get on with the pod. Kate, welcome back to the show. Welcome back to your show.
Looking forward to this one.
Yeah, so we've had some amazing guests to date.
Absolutely.
And we have a lineup today which takes it to the next level. Talk to me about what's going on in your world before we have our guest on.
Well, I'm going to have to revert back to you in your 3-day water fast.
Yes.
So how far are you into this now?
I'm 3 days in.
Wow. And when will it end?
Probably lunchtime tomorrow.
And what inspired you to do it?
So one of our members here started talking to me last week about intermittent fasting.
Yeah.
And I have always intermittent fasted. On Fridays and Mondays, I do a 24-hour, so dinner to dinner, Fridays and Mondays, primarily to create room for the weekend.
Yes.
And then come back on Monday to detox from the weekend.
Sure.
Although I don't drink or do anything stupid, but I indulge in, sweets and treats with my kids.
Yeah.
And one of our members said, have I ever done a 72-hour fast? Or have I ever done a 3-day fast?
Yeah.
And to which I was like, that's wild. And I woke up Monday, wasn't really hungry, so I just kept going. Normally do a 24-hour on a Monday, but just kind of didn't have dinner.
Yeah.
Today's Wednesday.
And you hadn't planned this. You just decided.
Yeah, just decided.
I
think it's mind over matter. So Dr. John Tickell talked about the mind over the matter component.
Yes.
And so, that pod dropped yesterday as well. So I got like that running through my ears. A member here at Cubes telling me.
And so how do you feel?
I feel amazing.
What's one of the benefits?
I'm not sure yet, but I've got a tremendous amount of energy.
Yes.
I have tremendous amount of clarity.
Yes.
Not that I was ever foggy, but feeling really good about it.
Excellent.
Yeah, so I confessed in when we had Dr. John on that I know nothing about nutrition. So I was a little bit scared to tell you about what I'm involved in at the moment.
So there's lots of fors and against for 3-day water fast. So the reason why you're probably feeling so good and have the mental clarity is some of the benefits are that you go into this fat burning keto state, which is a really steady energy state. You actually put out lots of cortisol, so you probably feel like you have more energy because of the cortisol.
Accurate.
So long term, maybe not a great thing because you're really running on adrenaline and, using your adrenals to fuel you.
Yep.
On the downside of it, though, you do start to burn muscle mass. You've got to just be really conscious when you come out of the fast to make sure that you're really topping up your protein. And the second thing is dehydration. So I can see you drinking water.
I have gone through so much water.
Electrolytes are key because if you don't get your electrolytes working or at the right levels, you might feel that kind of heart palpitation-y, a bit agitated or frustrated. You've got to get your electrolytes settled. Let's just say that. So actually popping like a hydrolyte or something like that will still keep you in the fast if it's just pure electrolytes without the glucose, but it might help with just keeping things regular on the inside.
Okay.
The other downfall to it is just the gut microbiome because you're actually starving the gut bacteria because they feed off fibre.
Sure.
So they'll start breaking down the lining of your gastrointestinal tract. They'll get through that mucus layer. Then you can end up with leaky gut if you go too long.
Okay.
However, benefit side, autophagy. Autophagy is breaking down senescent cells or cells that are not good for you in the body.
Yep.
So there's definitely a cleansing element.
Yep.
There's definitely a harm element. So it's finding what works for you.
All right. So Thursday lunchtime will be my break, which is sort of like still another day and a couple of hours away, which is fine. I'm not feeling jittery or what. When should anyone listening to this pod, when should I jump back into doing this again?
Realistically, it depends on the individual. So there's a couple of things at play here. So the first one is males and females fast quite differently as well because of hormones. And also it depends what fuel you have on board and how well you are. Yeah. Well, how good your metabolic flexibility is. So how quickly you can go from burning carbohydrate to burning fat, and how your mitochondria, the energy powerhouses of your cell, work. And if they work well, you'll feel really good during this. If they don't work well, you'll start to take a bit of a dive at some point. So we'll see. You've got a day to go.
Yeah. And the repeat aspect. So should I do this monthly, 6 monthly, annually?
Given that you're at a really good body weight, it's not for weight loss.
No.
So I'd be really cautious of doing it too often because you'll burn through muscle mass.
Sure.
So once you get past 48 hours, which you've done, you start to really heavily burn muscle. So just a really concerted effort when you come out of the fast to put that muscle mass back on.
Yep.
So to eat really well, which you do most of the time.
Except for chocolate.
Yeah. And just be aware of the gut microbiome. So put in lots of good plant-based foods and fibres just to build that all back up again, because otherwise it can actually impair immunity as well. You start to damage your immune system if you do it too often.
Got it.
But each to their own.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to follow your lead. And that was a very long intro to today's show. But we have a special guest coming on. Do you want to share with the audience who's coming on and what they're about?
Yes, we have Norliza, who is an international speaker. She's actually got an event for 40,000 people tomorrow.
Wow.
So she's been doing this for many, many years. She's got a company called Mindhub directory as well, where they list different health professionals for mental health. So people have a choice. So just don't have to rely on the referral that's come from their GP. They can choose who they want to see. But I'll let her do the rest of the introduction.
I'm
She
excited.
has an incredible story.
And she has 2 beautiful girls as well.
Oh, she has 5 children, actually.
She's 5. Well, there's 2 beautiful girls here in the studio today.
Absolutely.
You have 2 girls. I have 2 girls. Guys, coming up after this break, we have Norliza. Guys, you've seen me put out content for years. It all started with James Shadrack from Purpose Productions. We've filmed over 800 vlogs, several hundred different pieces of content that has helped me take my business to the next level. We use Purpose Productions for all the content, pods, vlogs, and storytelling that we produce. Check out purposeproductions.co to learn how James and his amazing team can help you scale your business and get your message out there. All right, Kate, we're back, and we have a special guest.
We do. Norliza, now I'll let you do your introduction and maybe give Tobi a bit of the background of your story.
Hey, Toby, how are you?
Very well. How are you?
Okay, prepare. Where's your popcorn?
It's I'm on a fast actually, so no
good.
popcorn today.
That's good. Well, okay, so I'll recap a little bit about me. For those of you who haven't seen me on the internet or followed any of my work, my name is Norliza. I'm a keynote speaker, a philanthropist, an author, most of all a mom to many children, 5 kids. I have a very interesting journey. I came from quite an affluent family growing up from Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. But my early childhood was quite troubled. As a 6-year-old child, I was sexually abused by my uncle for quite a few years. And then at 14, I was raped by a first cousin of mine. So that was incredibly difficult. We'd migrated to Australia when I was 12, and I'd gone home for a holiday. And in that holiday back home, I was hurt by a cousin, which should never have happened. But coming from the cultural background that I come from, but not only that, now doing the work that I do globally, I see that it's not just an Asian culture, an Indian culture, or an Middle Eastern culture. It's cultures all around the world. It's a topic that people don't really want to talk about, and they don't really know how to deal with it either. So when I came back home from that holiday after being raped by a cousin, I'd fallen into an immense epic depression. And as a kid, you don't know what's happening to you, why your voice is missing, why you stopped talking. Why you're sad all the time? And so I'd attempted suicide 3 times. And the third attempt, and each attempt was quite graphic. One was more graphic than the other. And the third attempt, I said to myself, well, if this doesn't work, well then how do I actually escape? And my only way to escape is to run away from home. And so being a 16-year-old child, to run away from home, to then be, in the streets of Melbourne was incredibly difficult for me. But I had gumption. And because I had come from a family of affluence, I'd grown up seeing the family with a particular standard. Everyone worked hard. My mum was a TV celebrity chef at the time, and my father worked as a radiologist in a hospital. And, I had a very affluent godmother and just a very strong family. So I knew that the only way for me to get out of homelessness was to focus and to work. And so I started my first business doing catering, where I would make packets of food, Indian food, rice and curry, dal, just different Indian meal packages, and sell it door to door. That helped get me out of homelessness. And of course, I had the support of government assistance, Centrelink, which helped give me a little bit of money as well. So I got out of that, went into school, graduated from school. But in that, I was 17 years old and I had fallen in love for the first time. And he was someone who I felt was really amazing. He was an engineering student at Swinburne University. He was the dux of his school. And I just thought that, love would save the world. But we don't understand that when we come from so much trauma, especially from a child, your learned behavior is to be silent, is to, to not understand what's right and wrong, and to not see the red flags. He ended up being extremely abusive. And when I was 18 years old, on my 18th birthday, after an immense argument about nothing, he hit me in my face so hard that I had to have the right-hand side of my face reconstructed. And so I have a metal plate holding my cheekbone and eye socket in place. I did everything in my power to break up from that relationship and try to rebuild my life again. Now, hoping that my face would recover, that I didn't look like a character from the Phantom of the Opera. And it did, it recovered, which was good. Got into uni, started studying psychology. Life was starting to pick up. And it was when I was walking home from school one day, I'd seen a man in a Nissan 300ZX. It was not far from Channel 10 Studios. He had a folder and he came out and he said, "You're the girl for the next Nike campaign. I'm a talent scout." And I thought, you know what? All the bad things that I've experienced have been put behind me. And now it's only time for good things. And now I've got this gig to be a model for a Nike campaign. Of course, that's not what happened. He ended up being a deranged lunatic who abducted me, took me to a place that I did not recognize, almost murdered me, abused me, tortured me. And I was a woman who was naked in his car, and it was really dark in the night. And he put a knife against my body very gently, and he says, "What's your last rites before I murder you?" And that was the point in which I thought, well, when everything is hopeless around you, the only thing that you can control is the hope that you give yourself. And so as he had pulled the car seat down and to put the knife on me to do what he wanted to do, I started to visualize the gates of heaven opening, because I felt like that was the only thing that I can control, and that was to go with peace. And everything changed from that point. And I think what changed was that I took the control away from him, really. Because what I've come to understand is that people who perpetrate, they don't really get off on the actual, like, abusing the woman they like to see, or abusing the person, they like to see the torment, the rage in that person or the fear in that person. That's what I've come to understand. And I didn't give him that. And so in that space of silence, as he's about to murder me, I was able to negotiate a little bit of time where I could then swap into a role play where I told him that I wanted to be his wife, I wanted to marry him, I wanted to be with him, and that it was better to keep me alive than to murder me. And he said, well, I'll drop you back to the place where I picked you up from, but you better be back at midnight or I will come after you. And so he did that. He dropped me back to where he picked me up from. And I ran for all my might to get back to my apartment at that time. And I remember saying to myself, well, how does a person cope from being kidnapped? Oh, what do they do in movies? Oh, yes. The victim goes into the shower. She washes herself with soap to clean herself up. That's what I thought I should do. I'd fallen into a huge nervous breakdown. And luckily, one of my girlfriends had called me. And she said, Lisa, what are you doing? Let's go to Chase's. Let's go clubbing tonight. And I said, I can't because this man is coming to pick me up again and I have to go and otherwise I'm going to be killed. Now, she ended up calling the Australian police, and it wasn't long, maybe about 15 minutes, when I had a knock on my door in my apartment, and I had about 8 Australian police detectives all set up a sting operation in my apartment in South Yarra to go and meet this guy, which I had absolutely zero strength to do it. But I knew that because the police had organized unmarked police cars and they had a team, that I just had to give that little, 10% more and just to show up. Sure enough, they catch this man. And it's now heard in the Australian court system. And the barrister, he had a QC, I had the police representing me, and the QC had said, is it true that you ran away from home? Yes. Is it true that you were raped as a kid? Yes. Is it true that, you have no money? Yes, it's true. And then they had a false alibi from that side turn up and basically say that I was his lover for 6 months. Now, that is probably the worst thing you can do to a human being. You almost being murdered, right? You're given your last rites. And now this person is apparently your lover, and there is absolutely no justice from the court system at all. And I had to leave that court case that day, and I had the Australian press, I think it was the Age or the Herald Sun at that point, and they said, Lisa, have you got any kind of... have you got any advice? And I said, the only advice that I can give is, regardless of what anyone thinks, what anyone believes, you were there, you know what happened, you got to believe in yourself. And that's the day that I decided, that I would always stand up again and rise. A year later, I'd given birth to my firstborn son, and that was a pregnancy that was not planned, and that was actually from the man who had broken my face, because as anyone out there who knows about domestic violence relationships, sometimes it just never leaves you at all, and they keep coming. So I had given birth to a baby. I was forced by my family to live with him, to marry the perpetrator, who then goes to abuse me for another 6 months. I'm beaten, I am belted, I am bleeding, you name it, it's all happening. Finally, I left. And as I left, I found solace in the club scene. And so anyone out there that knows the club scene, I found such solace. I found solace through music, through hard house. It's not the best scene, I know, but I met so many amazing people who didn't want to hurt me, didn't want to touch me. It was actually a loving space. But then I had to also then break through that scene to realize, well, I want to be more than just finding peace and having friends, and I need to be entrepreneurial. I started my first business idea with zero startup. My first event was called Miss India International at Queensbridge Hotel, and with zero startup and just a baby, I had pulled in 4,000 people to my first show. I did those shows for a couple of years and then managed to take on an opportunity where I was given a struggling cafe in Flinders Lane, made that such a hit called Mini Bar Piccolo, and then left that to go into the tailoring business with the father of my children, and we'd opened up 5 stores. And when you feel like you've achieved everything, especially when Chanel invites you to Rue des Cambon to look at Chanel's apartment, sitting there in Chanel's apartment, which doesn't get open to the public, I was like, have I arrived? No, I haven't. Am I happy? No, I'm not. Do I have a thriving tailoring business? Yes, I do. and children, but what's missing? And I realized when Jill Ma was murdered, and for those of you who don't know the case, it's a woman who was coming home from meeting with friends and she was murdered in Brunswick. I thought, I'm not the only one. There are so many people that get murdered and their voice is not heard. And I felt like I had a duty of care to come out and speak, because I was, a survivor who was meant to die, but didn't die. And so I have this huge pain in my heart for people that don't make it through, that get killed along the way. And because I survived, I feel like I have this huge duty of care to advocate. And so I do that. And, I never pay for advertising. I never pay for any kind of press. I've always been strict for that. Because I don't need to be on the cover of any magazine and pay for it, because this isn't the Liza show. This is the people show, the people who suffer, and how do we overcome adversity through suffering. And that's what I'm all about, because sometimes the law isn't on your side, and that's why I now have founded my Mindhub, which is my company. It was called my Mindhub directory, but it's now called my Mindhub, because we all have, it's like my mind, my pain, my suffering. You have that, Kate has that, everyone has that. And so it's a portal in which people can go, find through filters, say sexual abuse or say, terminal illness or whatever, to then connect with the right kind of psychiatrist, clinical psychologist, somatic practitioner, art therapist, because mental health is a journey. So that's basically the story.
Well, she told you to get the popcorn, Tobi.
I'm shocked.
Yeah.
I don't know how one will recover from that. I'm just so in awe of your strength.
Thank you.
Despite the fact the words that are coming out of your mouth are not the words that I thought I'd be hearing on this pod, right?
And I think I've recently listened to Norliza's Audible book, The Conviction. You've got the hard copy there. And I knew a little bit of Norliza's story. I actually met her at a nail salon of all places, and we got talking. And then when I listened to the full story, it became real to me. And I was saying just this morning, a friend of mine listened to her story and wrote me an email just saying, I'm still in tears. I've just listened to this. And
I didn't listen to it on an audiobook. I heard it
you
in
got
person.
it firsthand.
With no knowledge.
Yeah.
Wow.
And being a father of two daughters,
you don't even know what's
mother,
going through my head on that front.
And Norliza's got 5 children to be raising strong children.
They're amazing kids as well.
Thank you.
Polite.
Thank you. Well, I think they're amazing because I bring them for work experience with me. It's really important. And I think that's one of the things that I remember growing up, just going with my mom on set and watching her. And so it's a learned thing where you start to realize, there is a standard in life and that you have to work hard. And so
there's 2 girls here, a 13-year-old and a 10-year-old.
Yes, I had a 16-year-old come with me yesterday at a conference with Corporate Bunnings yesterday.
Okay. Yep.
And then I have a 18-year-old who'll be working with me on a conference that I've got tomorrow, which is virtual, global. And then I've got a 26-year-old who always stops me, because sometimes, on Instagram, I just want to put out I'm in a club, with a really good hip hop track, and he'd be like, take it down now. Mommy, take it down now.
Yes, I get that. I understand that.
I'm human. I love music.
I love music too. And so, as a mother,
yes,
I'm still a deer in headlights on this story, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm glad I didn't give you the background first. I'm like,
as a mother, obviously you've embraced your past,
yes,
which I think is really important.
Yes,
from a humanity perspective, I think running from the facts doesn't change the facts.
No,
and the notion that you've embraced your past openly in front of your kids, how do they receive it?
I think they receive it well. I think my daughter, Amira, she went to school and she said, oh, I like my mum because she talks about rape. And they're like, what? The teachers were like, what? And then they came to me and said, oh, your daughter said something. Is something happening? I said, no, this is what I do for a living. I'm actually recognized number 8 globally on suicide prevention, right? I think that it's a really important conversation to be had. And I think safety is really important. And I always advocate for my children to know right from left, who's around, behind, So Yeah, it's just...
And your parents, are they still in your life?
My mother is now in my life.
Yeah.
It took a long time for her to come back to my life and for
Yeah.
us to find a place of peace. And, my dad, I'm very peaceful, with my family. But I think I've just become someone so independent, and I don't sugarcoat the truth, which is really difficult for some people,
Yeah.
And culturally as well. That's
Yeah, I was actually
probably-
angling at the cultural aspect because it feels like you broke out.
I broke out, but that's like for any culture. It could even be a European, a British culture, any culture. People just don't want to hear it, But I feel like I need to speak about it because it's not about me. It's about someone is listening to this podcast today and it's going to help them. I mean, suicide is something we don't really like to talk about. I understand that, but I tried it many times. I've been hospitalized where I had to drink charcoal, like just to get it out of my system. Like there's just so many, because in that entire journey of having been abused and just as if your life doesn't matter at all, and the level of injustice and the discrimination that comes, how do you rise? And I think, one thing that I've learned, it is that it is my responsibility to save my life. It's my responsibility to make myself successful. And I think every person out there needs to take ownership of, regardless what happens to them, it is their responsibility to live their best life possible. I had a friend, she asked me, I'm going to Hong Kong and I'm thinking, should I stay at Disneyland or should I not? And I'm like, yes, stay in Disneyland. Enjoy yourself.
Yeah.
Because, there's an amazing poet. I love to always repeat his work, and Rumi, 13th century Persian poet. He wrote Life Asks Death. Why do people love me but hate you? And it's my most amazing favorite quote. Rumi responded, it's because I'm, you're a beautiful lie and I'm the painful truth. So death is inevitable for all of us. And so I think that we need to live our best life. Mm-hmm. And sometimes people struggle with me, close people around me maybe, because I'm constantly wanting to live my best life.
Well, I think you made a point there that everybody dies, but not everybody lives.
Yes.
And your breakout has enabled you to live your best life.
Yes.
When I walked in, the pride in your face when you introduced me to your girls says everything that I need to know, quite honestly, despite the fact that I knew nothing.
You do that, Tobi, though. You just told me how you can't be away from your family and your daughters, and you travel wherever you go, but without fail, you come home every night. You pick up your daughters, you take them where they need to go. He was on a 9 o'clock plane to Sydney after he'd already been there that morning.
Yeah, I was there in Sydney in the morning, and my daughter was at school camp.
Right.
So she couldn't come the day before with me, so I came home, picked her up.
Yeah.
And we flew back for the long weekend together.
So incredible.
So I get it. I like, there's nothing I could say that sort of like touches sides. But like, I'm grateful for your strength.
Oh, thank you.
I think the world needs people like you.
Thank you.
They don't need your situation, but they need find the light at the end of this really dark tunnel sort of situation.
Yeah.
And advocacy and promotion of, it's going to be okay and there are better days ahead.
Definitely.
And why do we hear more of Dilmar's story when she didn't survive than the survivors?
Yeah.
They should all be told because you don't want it to get to that point. Whereas if there was a heightened awareness of what is happening in society.
It's really sad. I mean, there's a girl, a family friend, best friend who was, walking through Doncaster Park or something like that, and she had her headphones on and then she was murdered, right? I know, my ex-husband's distant relative, she was murdered in the graveyard when she went to visit her grandmother. And, sadly, not even one of the largest rape cases actually in UK with men. So there was a guy who lived in a very affluent area, and he was a PhD student, and it was in a clubbing precinct. And so he would go downstairs and then guys would be waiting for the cab or something like that. And he'd say, hey, is your mobile charged? Do you want to come upstairs? And then he would drug them. And I think he drugged like so many men, and he raped them all, right? And the men just woke up the next day and just didn't talk about it. And that's why I'm very, very big on this happens to everybody.
Yeah.
You know, transgenders, you know, everybody, you know, it's I understand the statistics are very high for women. I get that. But, you know, I don't want to take away from, we are all human and we are all people and we all go through adversity.
That's where I come in. I'm for humanity.
Yeah.
You said something before, you're for the people. This isn't your story. This is the people's story. Yeah. I feel like that. I mean, it doesn't touch sides on what you just said, but, you know, for me, entrepreneurs, it's a very lonely journey.
Yes.
You know, and I want to be the people's entrepreneur. I want to open the door and let them thrive and let them tell their story, because there's a lot of attention on the stuff that I'm doing.
I'm a fan of the work that you do.
Thank you. Let's not turn the camera this way. I want to keep it this way because this is really important. But like the selflessness here.
Yeah.
And the fact that you've got
Thank you.
two. Well, I've only met 2 of the 5, but 2 beautiful girls.
Wait till you meet the others. Yeah.
Well,
and the vulnerability as well
God.
is just, you've got to really open up, don't you, to share all of it. She didn't just share a small part of that story. Being able to really open up and face it and drag yourself through that again to be able to heal from it.
But I must say I struggle as well. I
Yes.
mean, I think
doubt.
I think what I struggle with is having such a huge story. And I didn't touch on one story actually. So me and 2 other Australians, one being a Channel 9 cameraman, okay, we were on a speaking engagement in 2017 on our way to Nigeria to give a talk. At that point, I was doing some work for a major airline, and we got off that airline in the Middle East, and we had a driver that was supposed to take us around to have a look before we boarded our next flight, which was, you know, a day away. That driver turned out to be a terrorist that was taking me and 2 other Australians to the desert to get killed, right? And it was my cameraman, Matt, who saved us because he had, you know, by luck, managed to fly a drone in the air, which alerted military intelligence. And it wasn't long, maybe a good 15 minutes before we were all then taken by military intelligence, put in prison to prove that we were not Australian and American spies. And in that immense, difficult, challenging ordeal where I had to prove that we were innocent, and how I did that was I was in the prison cell and the warden looked at me and she said, in very minimal English and Arab, she said, "What did you do?" Right? And I tried to communicate with her and I said, iPhone, do you have an iPhone? She shows me an iPhone. I literally typed up my name and went specifically to the scene where I was on CNN. Didn't show her anything else. Didn't show her my kids. Didn't show her family photos of my dog. Nothing. Just went to the scene on CNN so that she would then be able to somehow pass the message, we have an Australian who's been on CNN. This is going to hit the news at some point. And that strategy worked. We managed to get out of that ordeal. And that was, I got complex PTSD. There's one thing when you're
How long ago was this?
This 2017. It's one thing when you're kidnapped on your own when you're 19 and about to get murdered. But it's another thing when you have 2 other Australians, a red-headed Australian and then a cameraman, and they're in your care, you know. They've come to do a speaking engagement for you, with you, and now all 3 of us. Now, they'd found the evidence of about 350 people that were alive and then murdered at that time, military. So this was big deal, a big deal. And I still suffer. And I think I suffer in the way that I don't have tolerance when people complain about very minimal things in life.
So, okay, no,
that is my problem.
This doesn't touch sides.
Shut up
but
about your water fast.
Yeah, no.
Right?
I'm on the treadmill running, and Jess Sims on the Peloton tread is like, we get to do this.
Yeah.
Stop complaining that you've got to do
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
And it's just it's changed a long time ago, but it just changed my mindset, which is like, it's such a privilege.
It's a problem, I must say. I try and change. I try to, not be so harsh. But when I hear people complain about little things, I'm just like, no. I remember once I live in Mount Eliza, and it's very it's a very how can I say, privileged suburb. And I remember I was trying to park the car for a school pickup, and one mother came out and she honked and she was like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "Dude, some people have been out of prison, like some people have been human trafficked. Like, what is the problem?"
Wow.
So
I think that the lightness there is where we will end. We will thank you. Your book is available. Let's
Yes.
give that a bit of a plug. Your book is available on Amazon.
it's everywhere.
Everywhere.
Amazon, you can get it on Spotify, you
Okay,
can download it, you can ebook.
So we'll link the show in the show notes. We'll link all the where to buys, and we'll be back after a brief break.
Thank you,
Thank
Norliza.
you. Thank you.
All right. weareluna.co is a great place for you and your business to start off with phenomenal accounting and legal services. So if you're a startup or a scale-up looking for legal and finance support, or alternatively looking to raise capital, weareluna.co is where you need to be starting off. Fucking hell, man.
Where to start?
Oh my God.
Yeah. And I think hearing a little bit of her story in the past, I had to get the book because I had to really understand it, because how can someone take so much? And I'm so glad that you got the first-hand storytelling, because there is so much to unpack there. And the fact that she's got 5 children and is raising them in a vulnerable, strong, open way, that resilience and what she is teaching them is incredible.
For me, I think we touched on it just at the end of the last segment. The ability to find positivity or strength from the darkest place that any human being could possibly go is absolutely incredible. And I think it's like superhuman.
Do you know what? One of her, because she does so many corporate events, one of the big corporates complimented her and said how palatable her story was.
Yeah.
Because in the big arena, I guess a lot of the corporates won't want to talk about these things. But the fact that she can do it with such conviction, hence her book, allows us to have conversations about it. Otherwise, I mean, most people are probably hiding away and never seen the light of day again, because how would you cope?
Yeah. I think voice is the most powerful thing that we've got, right?
Yeah.
Like she had a knife in her stomach or in her body, and she managed to escape that, only to find out, a little bit while later, that she was kidnapped in the Middle East.
The Middle East, yeah.
To escape that.
Yeah.
Like her voice is just so powerful. And us as human beings, I think our voice, we got to recognize, and I don't think
tell our stories.
Yeah, I don't think you sit in silence, because your story, as much as we think we're really special, like we're really unique, and yes, we have all these accolades and we're able to do this and the other, like the reality is that we're just a statistic.
Yes.
And the emotions that we go through in life are definitely emotions that others go through, but everyone thinks they're by themselves. And the beauty about using your voice in this, just on a reflection, Kate, is that if you speak up, other people will gravitate, and then you can share, and then you can build community, and then you're around like-minded people. And hopefully, one-on-one is greater than two. Hopefully.
Yes. And I think the most scary part about her entire story for me is that her parents didn't protect her.
That kills me.
Not that they could protect her from all of it, but
no. Her parents should have.
Unit.
Her parents should have.
Yeah.
The mere fact that her parents forced her to get married to somebody after he'd done such damage.
Yes.
To me, culturally, I don't have respect for that personally.
I've got shivers.
And
the domestic violence.
As a father of girls, man.
Yeah.
My little girl broke up with her boyfriend
the
other day. And I just keep saying to them, I hope one day, and they keep rolling their eyes, I hope one day you find someone that loves you as much as I love mummy. oh, Dad, that's disgusting, da-da-da-da-da. But my God.
Yeah. It's so true, isn't it? And I always pick up my husband if he says anything slightly derogatory about women or, just throwaway comments. I'm like, think about that. How would you tolerate that comment if that was said to your girls? And then he's like, oh, no way, I'd punch them.
I've got to say, we're going to wrap there only because I've been clinching the whole time and my muscles need a break. I need to talk about something a little bit different, but I'm grateful for her. I'm grateful to you having her come on the show. And I hope that this gets heard by millions.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you for taking the time.
Thank you.